Good morning or afternoon, depending on your time zone. This is the weekly VOLTHA TST meeting. Okay, so let's see what we've got for agenda items today. So we have the ongoing announcement for the ONF broadband meetup hosted by Türk Telecom over in Istanbul. Just mentioning it, this is going to be ongoing for a little while. It'll be hosted in October. So if anybody would like to sign up or attend, and the CFPs are open if anybody would like to propose technical talks. So that's all good. Does anybody have any items that they'd like to add on the agenda to cover before we go into testing and all the other fun stuff? And we can add them at the end too. That's not a big deal. Okay, so a few updates from last week. So we've been visiting the Jenkins job view to go over a lot of the failures that are showing up. Primarily, there's two sets of jobs that we've been targeting. The Berlin community jobs that Jan has been working with people on. And we'll mention that later. And I've been trying to dig into the simulator tests. We are getting some green in there now. There are still some problems in there. And I've been trying to open JIRA tickets for all of the testing related failures that are coming up. I'll go over those in a minute. Let's see, but we have an epic right now for tracking the BB sim failures. 5125 is starting to collect some of the problems that are coming up. A good share of these are testing related. Just pull this one up. So 5126. Just for an example, I know this is for 2.11, but there are some other tests failing for the same reason. So in this case, when the test was running, we had a failure show up for cleanup in etcd failed after retrying. This looks like it might be a unit test that's not cleaning up behind itself. The last error was stale open ONU data in etcd. So that's one of the failures that are coming up. There's another one with memory leak testing. I think Holger was working in here at one point, but there are some failures showing up in there. The kind command should be fixed. And I'll just do this one quick. We won't go stay on this too long. But if you want to work on any of the BB sim failures, they're in 5125. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I've been putting some links up at the top of the VIP page just to be able to navigate and find things easily. Like the BB sim link under jobs, if you visit this, it'll show you all the BB sim tests that are available if you want to dig into any of those. And a good share of them are broken down by version, so you can go in and look at the 211 and 212 ones if you want. Okay, so let's go back over here. Yeah, some green showing up. This is the epic for BB sim that we just went over. Oh, there've been a few tests that have been a few failures that have been reported. Some of them are intermittent failures. There's some JIRA tickets open for this, but basically the testing run will start. We'll begin running some tests against some of the devices. The suites early on pass without any problems. In the middle of the testing run, it almost looks like we're either encountering sorry, I can't talk today. Either the device restarted or we're doing some setup to run the next test suite. And there's failures that periodically show up. It might be a device that's not fully restarted. It's not fully initialized. And we begin seeing some transient failures in the middle of the testing run, that causes the job to fail. But often when you run it after the failure happens, you'll see green. So we may have timeouts or sleep issues or something going on there. But, those are another batch of problems that are showing up in the test run. Okay, so I think Jan was online. If Jan, if you'd like to give us an update on the community pod testing.
Yeah, sure. So we've been looking a bit more into these failures specific to the OLT, so specifically the GPON OLT not coming up properly. We've been going through the logs and seeing or trying to find out what the reason for the non-functioning OLT is. So this is basically two devices from EdgeCore. Specifically one device, 64-port GPON OLT from EdgeCore, where it seems that the BAL version or BAL running on it is not working properly. At least that's what I got also from what Burak, who's also here from Netsia, told me. So it seems like with the current version of BAL installed on it, as well as the Open OLT installed on it, the OLT itself is not initializing properly, and therefore we can't really go through any tests, because without an OLT, it's pretty hard, I guess. So yeah, we've been digging a bit into that. Burak told me that he'll try to build Open OLT, including the BAL thing, sometime soon, and then we have a package that we can test again. The other option, also based on the feedback that we got from, I forgot his name, Girish, I guess, who is also mentioning in this ticket that we're working on Jira, is that this issue has been known for a pretty long time, actually, and they've been working around that by manually reinstalling different versions of Open OLT and rebooting the device and whatnot. And but that was also pretty inconsistent as far as I can read from the ticket. And the general suggestion here at the moment might be to move on with our lives and switch the OLT. So it might be one option to just not use the EdgeCore OLTs anymore. So I wasn't able to find anybody from EdgeCore actually supporting this. And what I got from different chats with multiple people, including also people from DT, which I asked about those specific OLT devices, and it might not be the best vendor contact at the moment. So we might not get the most support here. We have two more OLTs in that rack that we could use. So there's one from Atran and one from Zyxel. So we can see if we can recable a bit and use different devices. But yeah, I think for now I'm waiting for the Open OLT build from Burak. And then, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, I'm not too good with that. And then
it sounds right.
Okay, and then we can see if we can install that again, and if we can get it somehow to work, because that would be really good, even if we still decide to migrate later. Migrating a working setup is always easier than migrating a broken one. And then we would need to see if we can also update it to the proper versions, because as far as I can tell, the versions installed on that might not be the ones that are recommended when working with the latest and greatest of VOLTHA. So yeah, that might not fit at all. I wrote a bunch of those things in the Jira ticket, so feel free to jump in there, and then we can continue discussing those things. But yeah, that's more or less the status specifically for this OLT debugging part. And then we'll see what follows out of that.
Jen and actually Joe, you both, do you know that if we currently in the ONF, do we have the old setup that Girish had to compile and build, the agent or not?
I'm not sure. This is for the release builds I was doing, this cross-compiling environment was the first time I had heard about it. So, and considering some of the labs have been dismantled over time, my guess is probably it does not exist, and we'll probably have to recreate it from scratch. Hopefully I'm wrong, but that would be my guess.
Yeah, Girish also commented on that way on the ticket, as far as I can see.
Okay, did he
We asked him about
did
the environment.
okay did he write where that environment was?
Oh, nice point.
I can
So
ask him. I can ask him for if there's any
okay.
details.
he
I just
just wrote.
because
I'm
we
not sure if the environment still exists, but he didn't write where they were. So yeah.
because Burak, some of the environments previously was in ONF lab, they are now in Redis's lab. Perhaps we can reach out these machines, we can use these machines, some of these machines. Perhaps this compile environment or build environment is still there working.
Okay.
So yeah, it's, I mean, I think we need to check with Girish. If any of you can talk with Girish via the task or Slack or mail, we can ask him where this compile environment was, and we can check if it's still working and we can reach these machines or not.
Is there a chance that anybody here has one of those OLTs in any lab that they know of or operate? Or because I mean, in the end, it's really just a binary that we're searching for, right? So if anybody has like this
Yes.
edge core box or a similar edge core box with the same chips or something, I'm happy to try installing binaries and see if we can get. I mean, right now it's really at the point where we should at least try to enable those 4 PON devices that are on there, and just see if this is working or not, and then we can see how to move on from there. So we really just need this Debian build, and if anybody has any similar box, that would be great, I guess. Maybe in any other lab, I don't know. Is this the only?
There's
device?
probably one. There's probably one in that Radisys lab, I'm guessing. And there may be one that was decommissioned out of an old WeWin lab that's just in storage right now. But
Yes.
yeah, those are the best shots.
Okay.
What's
So yeah, I
this,
guess maybe.
what are the status of the ones that in Redis's lab? Have you tried to connect them recently or not?
No, I haven't done anything with those devices for a while.
Yeah, there are a few in Redis's lab, actually, I guess. Not only one. And there was one in this, what was the name of this company? Vinyl or something in their lab with
Right.
decommissioned, as Timon said. I don't know where it is, the hardware itself, but also there were a few ones in Redis's labs. Because there were some which we used for testing. There were some which used for certification. So there should be more than one in Redis's lab.
So yeah. So but how did the binary get lost on the unit that's in the Berlin lab? Do we know?
Actually, it is not lost. I think it's not renewed. I mean, this is a very old version we're using. As far as I understand, Jen, you can comment on that.
Yeah, so it's not lost, definitely not. There is even 4 or 5 different versions that we have. I tried most of them. So there's one left that has a debug flag and an additional commit that I could find nowhere. But all of the other ones I tried, and it seems none of them seem to be able to initialize correctly. So you always see that the OpenOLT is basically trying to start up and is talking to this dev management daemon, which would be the BAL interface fight, I guess. And then after a certain amount of time, the OpenOLT just says that it was not successful initializing the PON. devices, and on the other side you see a bunch of errors pointing to an unknown MAC blah blah blah. I don't have the source code for those specific things, otherwise I could maybe try to check, but so if anybody wants to hand out BAL source code here, that would also be an option to continue the debugging part. Currently I just don't know why none of those combinations of BAL and OpenOLT are able to initialize this device, because I would assume that it must have been working at one point. Otherwise people would have complained earlier. But it's very hard to tell what got us into this state, because also from what is done on that box, it is never really reinstalled, right? So instead of uninstalling and installing something new, the only thing that happens in every pipeline run is just install this binary and don't care for what was there before, which might work, but might also lead at a certain point to a very unpredictable state depending on what has been done before, right? So
But
it's hard to tell.
yes, but there's also a fact that with this same version, we were succeeding at the tests in during VOLTHA 2.11 release. A few months ago, I guess, we were succeeding in all of the tests in Berlin pod 1. So
I'm remembering that there was an edge core hardware failure in Berlin, I believe, and that we were unable to get edge core to step up to repair it. Edge core wanted the project to buy a new unit. Does anybody else remember that? And is this the same unit?
what was its time?
My memory is there was an edge core OLT that had some kind of hardware failure.
It was they were more than one, but they were the one in this here in Santa Clara in this hosting company, and the one in the Redis lab. I think they were the old ones that they're not working, but the Berlin was the edge core in the Berlin. I guess there are two edge cores in Berlin. One is JPON and the other one is XJSON. Especially the one in the pod 1, I think it's JPON. So we used it for all of the tests of VOLTHA 2.11. It was working, fine. But then we had some connection problems, I guess, in the lab. That some network problems. I think after this network problems fixed, we started to have these problems.
So what we can try to do, if like you say that 2.11 was working, we can try to run specifically 2.11 pipelines or look into what was installed during 2.11 pipeline runs and see if that somehow works. So I was mainly looking at the ones that are in this VIP right now, and at least the version that is mentioned there is not working. It might be that any combination of other configuration and BAL plus OpenOLT might be working. So we can just I can run 2.11 pipelines and see what is in there, if that changes anything, and then try to figure out what exactly the difference between the 2.11 and the current master is. But that, just judging from the VOLTHA part, so we don't even get to the point where you could theoretically connect to it, right? Because the gRPC part is not coming up because OpenOLT is just not initializing at all. So we don't get to the point where we would be connecting with anything. But yeah, I can try to take a look. If you say 2.11 was working, that might be a good start to figure out which binary combination or which steps might be the ones getting us there.
Yeah, by the way, as far as I can see from the edge core server, we have the latest binary is for VOLTHA 2.10. It seems 3.7.4, agent 3.7.4, and probably you will be using that for 2.11, I guess, or there may be newer binaries that that will not be uploaded. That's the other possibility. But as Girish said, he didn't experience this problem with 3.4 based agent. So that's why, and also this problem is observed on XGS box, right? So that's why I just did not think about an hardware problem or so. But if you say this is not observed on XGS box, only observed on GPON box, only on certain GPON boxes, so yeah, then we can be suspicious about the hardware failure, because the error is actually quite interesting. You know, we cannot query the underlying chips, so it is interesting. But that kind of problem may also stem from the wrong building of binaries, etc. But you know, these are official binaries, and you say there are successful test cases using these binaries. So, and also I remember using these binaries on other systems. So,
And I don't think we changed the binaries from 2.11 or 12, and between the 2.11 and 12. They're probably the same.
No, from 2.10 to 11, I mean.
Okay, it's also the case, I guess. I don't think that we changed the binaries from 2.10 to 2.11 also.
Just
Okay,
what,
so it's
Yeah,
3.7.
let Jen to check the jobs, and if there are some differences between the binaries or not. But I don't think we made change with the binaries, because as far as I learned from the things that you said previously, it has been a while that we haven't changed these binaries.
So,
But maybe one. Yeah, sorry. Please go ahead.
well, I just want to check. So, I mean, is there agreement here? It seems to me that we need to move off this edge core hardware. We've had problems for years. They're not supporting it. Nobody's using it, as far as I can tell. It's time to move on. This whole discussion, Jan, I get it. If bringing it up would help migrate, great. But let's not overinvest here. And if we could just, so I guess number one, I want to pause here. Is there agreement here at the TST that, if we could move all these jobs to newer OLTs, we would?
Yeah, this is Amit. I think we have a Excel box as well, right, in Berlin, and I think we should focus our energies on trying to get things running on this one, because we'll get support from the vendor in that case.
Right. Agreed. So
But
anybody else? So
actually, I don't know. We have two boxes there, two edge core boxes there. And without these edge core boxes, we only have a one Zyxel box there. I don't mention about the Atram because it's not open source. It doesn't have open source adapters, and it's used only by DT. So the common one is the Zyxel only. So from 3, we're downgrading to only one OLT. That's one side of the things. On the other side, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. What I was trying to say is, let's focus our energies right now on Zyxel, where our chances of getting it to green is higher, right? So once we bring that to green, at least we will have something. Yeah. And then we can spend time on trying to bring up the edge core, right?
Okay. I agree on that, but we also need to do some arrangements in the test setup there, in the ONOS that we use there for configuring the switch. Also all the configurations files we have to go through them because they're not complete for the Zyxel. As far as I remember from the 2.11 test, the test setup is not complete for the Zyxel OLT. I think 1 or 2 perfectly configured jobs are running on Zyxel, but the others cannot, because each OLT means that we need to configure new VLAN tags for each test and service on different OLT. So new configurations have to be done both on VOLTHA's jobs and on the ONOS that we're using there to configure the irrigation switch, etc. So we need to go through this configuration and it takes time. Okay, so let's try the edge core one with the binary that, you know, we get from Burak and see that if they're working or not. And if they're working and we can use them, let's go with this to the release and then in parallel check the Zyxel one, try to configure this setup. But I guess we should at least, you know, try with these new binaries. And Burak, I think you try to also reach out the edge core guys if they have someone representing, you know, ONF side or not, but we couldn't get
No, actually,
success answer
Jason is responding.
Mhm.
Jason is responding. So, but Jason is the technical guy. You know, once we have Bal Brigade, etc. on the ONF side, we were working with Girish, Jason, etc. So he was technically representing the edge core side, and he redirected us to Girish actually about the building environment, etc. But we may ask about the official and current representative of edge core, you know, technical representation about, you know, to join these discussions, etc. So yeah, but we didn't ask. Actually, I already asked Eric on that, but they didn't respond focusing on that question. You know, nobody said this one is the responsible guy there. So
Yeah,
we can insist on that question.
That's the problem, that we don't have anyone from edge core representing them in ONF. So
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as I know, I believe still need to move on from edge core. I kind of asked the question, it seemed like it, but then here you were kind of encouraging to go back and try and get edge core up, and it seems like it was just because of availability of hardware. Did I get that right? I mean, wouldn't it be better if we had a Zyxel and let's say Radisys hardware in that lab? And we've got some effectively idle OLT hardware in the Radisys lab in Oregon. What if we were to, you know, should we start moving that equipment to Berlin?
I don't know if the hardware in the Oregon are in good shape or not, you know, because they were failing also, and we thought that it's
failing. So I think what was failing were servers, and like I think the you know, I think there are Radisys OLTs that should be in good shape, and I think there might have been a Zyxel OLT. I'm not sure about that, but there was one somewhere.
There is a Zyxel OLT there. We can move the jobs on this Zyxel OLT, but what I'm saying is it takes time, you know. So we can do that in parallel. So, but if there's a, you know, we can give a shot for the edge core for the new binaries and it works, then that's good to you know, cover the test that we need to do for the new release. So, but other than that, we can use Zyxel in parallel.
Yeah, so we're trying to balance near term and longer term, right? And we'd like to get through this release. If we could get edge core up, we're all agreed. Let's get it up. Let's get this release done. We'd be in a better position to migrate. But let's not over-invest in getting the edge core gear up. I guess that's the guidance for you, Jan. You've got to kind of strike a balance. Then,
but what does that mean? I mean, like, so I can right now basically either work on the edge core box or try to reconnect certain things and reconfigure certain pipelines to make those pipelines work on the Zyxel box. Doing both things in parallel I don't know if there is enough ONU devices. I can try to see if I can recable ONU devices that are unused, but I'm not sure if we have that or if I can create new pipelines. So I can also try to look into that, or I can like ask Roger or somebody else to look into that. But so is that like a sequential thing, or because it sounded a bit like we wanted to do stuff in parallel, and I don't see how we have the hardware to do those things in parallel.
We have hardware, I guess, because in this lab there are three. So with Atran there are 4 OLTs, and all of OLTs have at least 2-3 ONUs connected. That was the case in 2.11. I mean, so it's probably the same. But the problem is in 2.11 test, we didn't have the correct or the related configuration on segment routing side, the aggregation switch configuration side, etc. And we didn't have correct pipeline configuration files for to run on both or all the devices. So to migrate from H-core and Zyxel, or to run both of them in parallel, we need to create the same jobs on Zyxel also. The jobs that are running on H-core, we need to create them for Zyxel also, and their configuration files accordingly, and we need to arrange the aggregation switch configuration side according to this new added configuration to the system. Because now, in this case, we have more than one OLT traffic coming and passing through the aggregation switch there. So we need to do a related configuration also on this side. So after that, we should be successful to run both tests in parallel. There is no obstacle to do this in parallel, to run all of the OLTs. You can run tests on all 4 OLTs in parallel.
Okay, so I get that, or at least what I understand is that there is the option to do a certain amount of development to basically create pipelines and create configuration and build new things so that we can run the stuff that is currently running on the Edge-core boxes on the Zyxel boxes, right?
Yes, right. Because I mean, the Atran and the H-cores are currently running in parallel,
Yeah.
And
okay.
we can add the Zyxel in this pipeline also. I mean, as a separate, pipeline.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a bit of a different task here, I guess, to do this kind of development or to do the debugging of the infrastructure components that we have there themselves. So I guess we can try to see how we can help out with this certain part, but I guess we would definitely need some help from people that are familiar with building those things, because like from the task that we defined initially for what BISDN is trying to do here is really getting this thing back up and running, because the assumption was that everything is working. It's just a bunch of small network connections that we need to fix, right? If we decide to move on from that towards a task definition that is more in the directions of developing new pipelines and configurations, we need to also figure out who can assist with doing those things. I'm not opposed to helping with those things. I'm just saying that it's a very different task description of what we're trying to do there, because it's not fixing things, it's developing new things. So it's just saying we're going into different direction then here, and like we can try to shift certain parts, but at least me personally, I'm not too confident that I can instantly jump on the task of developing pipelines in this whole framework to run on a different kind of OLT to represent the same test scenarios that we're running on another OLT, but this isn't working right now. So I also don't have a working example to base this whole, it's a bit, you know, like if we would have a working example, we could try to go from there. But as long as we don't have a working example, it's really, yeah, difficult, I guess.
We probably have the working examples there because there were some jobs also running on Zyxel, OLT, DT jobs, I guess they were. So we will check on them. So we can help. I can help for the correct configuration files to create them on in repositories, and then perhaps with Joy can help us to create the Jenkins jobs to copy from the other one. So let's check if we have let me to this week check if there are some pipelines that were used on this Zyxel OLTs, and so that we can create the other ones. I remember that we tried to create, or probably we created and push this some configuration files for Türk Telekom jobs to run them on Zyxel. So there are some things there. Let me check this week for them. I'll get back to you in Slack. Also, I think we can create a Slack channel for this, and we discuss, online there on Slack.
But Mahir, the one point that you brought up of Burak being able to get a binary which we could try out, I think that is worth pursuing, just to check, right? Because that's not going to take a lot of time and energy, right? We just try with that binary. If that works,
during
then
this time,
we could.
During this time, when while I try to check the existing jobs for the Zyxel OLT, I think Jen can continue to work on HCore OLT.
And should we start a third thread of trying to get some of the hardware from the Oregon lab over to Berlin? That's going to take some time.
John, can we make a quick session, together to examine the OLT? That's another additional quick thing to
Sure.
see the things. So
not necessarily right now, but we can do
that
that tomorrow.
Yeah, sure. We can plan. Yeah, sure.
We can do that tomorrow. Yeah. So I've one appointment tomorrow with Björn, who's also here, I guess. Like also checking the rec and seeing what components are in there and seeing like what we can do to improve certain parts. But I guess after that, so like early afternoon, I would definitely have time to do like a remote debugging session with you, and then we can look at the same screen. I'm happy if anybody wants to help guide me a bit what this thing was supposed to look like. Yeah,
I don't have any access to the OLT, so I cannot check. So that would be great if we can get a CLI of that, and we can check both XGS and GPON boxes with the Debian packages at hand. So
let's do that.
Great. Okay,
let's
great.
do that.
So so Taman, the point that you brought up, I think we could start thinking about that, and I think we would need to talk with the lab infrastructure guys, right, who are hosting the hardware in the DT labs, and discuss with them the power requirements, the space requirements, right? Are the spaces already there in the existing racks so that this new hardware could be moved in? So I think we could initiate a discussion on that front and see how do we take it forward.
Yeah, very good. I mean, and is that who wants to lead that? Amit, you want to lead that discussion? with the DT folks? And how much space do we need? I mean, presumably, they're probably,
So
I don't know, I'm guessing 3 units, three, one rack unit OLTs to move and some ONUs, something like that.
So maybe one more thing that I can bring up from my side. I'm not sure if it's too helpful, but I'm also meeting a bunch of people from Zyxel tomorrow. So if there is anything like in terms of like moving stuff, or like maybe having already a bunch of Zyxel boxes within Europe and then avoiding all of this annoyance of shipping stuff through customs, I can ask them if they are willing to connect with anybody here, or if they already have connections and like work with it. I mean, as I said, I'm meeting tomorrow with Björn, and then later I'm meeting with people from Zyxel. So I don't know if you want me to relay anything there or ask them for support there for getting another OLT. I mean, there's this 3016 or something in there. Not sure if that's helpful.
Yeah, no, that would be helpful. It's worth raising. And it's good that Bjorn, as well as Zyxel, know that this is going on. And I think we really also want to get Radis's OLTs in there, Amit, and maybe you could help lead that, and that could be moving them from the Oregon lab, but there's some other more expeditious way to do it.
Yeah, I can take an action to check on that.
Okay, are we ready to move on? Just a side note, this is the 2.11 version of the Jenkins job, the tests that Jan's currently working on. The 2.11 jobs, according to the history, are showing a bunch of failures. So if they were, people remember the running cleanly for 2.11, the current job runs are failing right now. So maybe that is hardware. Okay, let me see.
So Joey, could we just summarize what we just spoke about, just
Sure.
So that we know what we are set?
Yeah, I'm trying to find a spot.
New hardware new hardware coming into the Berlin lab, and the other is how to get or discussion on the existing jobs with the existing hardware, right?
It feels like there are 3 threads. The shortest term thread is trying to get the edge core boxes to work by just finding some binaries that work.
Yeah.
Maybe recreating the build environment, but that feels to me like, unless we can just find it, I'm not sure it's worth that investment. That's short term. The medium term is to try to get, migrate the jobs to the Zyxel box that's already there. So that Joy's trying to catch up here. Anybody else in this file? Just happy to help edit. Let's see.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on the phone, so I'm not able to edit. No, I think one more
You're breaking up right now.
thing which we should see if the existing jobs.
Could you repeat that? You were breaking up just a minute ago.
Okay, what I was saying is that we should also try to see if the existing jobs with Zaxel, if we can turn them green, because that would give us examples of some successful jobs, right? And that would help us in, if not anything, at least building our confidence.
Section has taken on a life of its own.
I'm just trying to hope this is being helpful, not confusing.
But
And then long term. Yes, this is a duplicate. You think so? Does this look like it's captured here from this joint edit session? If I go through this,
One more action on me would be, one more action on me would be to check if we could have some radishes or OLTs as well in Berlin.
if you're breaking up again a minute. If you want to
I heard a check on radishes OLTs. That was about it.
yeah, I got it. I'm adding the last bullet here. So omit to try to source radishes
yeah.
OLTs to add to the Berlin lab. So I think, it's short term, it's trying to get the edge core working, even though we know we want to migrate away from edge core. So trying to obtain binaries. This isn't part of this. But we know we want to migrate away from edge core. Then midterm, is to migrate jobs to the Zyxel hardware that's already in Berlin. And Mahir's volunteered to help Jan with some of the infrastructure reconfig that's necessary to make that work. And also Jan was to speak with Zyxel, since you're going to have a meeting with them tomorrow.
Simon, another point, the edge core OLTs are used in telecom deployment, so we're better to keep them there and have a workflow, at least a job running on them. So
that was
we should try to, we shouldn't give up easily on edge cores. And as I said, we have two hardwares that are valuable, having two hardwares there.
Yeah. So this was kind of what I was trying to get to with some of my questions earlier. If there's anybody who's invested in keeping edge core working. I mean, edge core is not investing in the community, and they've really backed away, starting maybe 2 years ago at this point. So from a community point of view, I'm ready to give up on them. They've really given, they're not investing. But if there's somebody who cares, and maybe Turk Telecom or Netsia really do care, then we need to figure out some alternative. Am I making sense?
Yeah, makes sense. But
I mean, maybe
did anyone on the ONF also try to get support from Edgecore or ask their support or not? Have you tried
Yes.
this?
Very much so. We did a whole bunch of this. And Andrea was doing this for quite some time, starting 2 or 3 years ago. They had a whole management change and really a strategic change around this project. The leadership of Edgecore was swapped out, changed. So, I can dig up some threads, but we were just like pulling teeth to try to get any kind of hardware support to get the box supported. It might, and really Edgecore was just saying you need to buy another box. And maybe it's that, maybe Turk Telecom and or Netsia need to donate a box, an Edgecore box, because Edgecore was not willing to do it on their own. So, if there's a significant interest, maybe that's the thing that needs to be pursued.
Yeah, probably TT guys will also have a saying here, I think. So we have apparently a legacy state here in terms of community. But apparently there is the fact that there are many boxes deployed on the field. So yeah, that should be talked in other circles, I think. Yeah.
So Brock, who will take that? I mean, that's kind of an internal issue for you guys, but I look to you, to come back if you want to pursue something like that, or for you to, try to get the vendor to support the project and support the hardware that's in Berlin. Okay.
Burak and Jen will do a debugging session tomorrow, and they will check if we can do something, if we can bring this up again or not. Then we also can try on the Edgecore side to bring someone.
Yeah, if you can bring them, that would be great.
Well, if we need Slack channels for some of the discussions, we'll just need names for them to be able to create them.
So just from memory, I believe, in Oregon, there are there's one Zyxel and a few or 2 Radisys OLTs. And probably some other gear that is salvageable. And we would probably just throw out all the server hardware that's all old and dying. So in terms of space emit, when you're talking with the guys in the Berlin lab or Jan, like I said, it's probably quarter rack that we need roughly.
Do we have any other items to add on this, or are we ready to move on? Okay.
I think we're good.
Okay, cool. Just generally since we've had some silent failures and some of the testing failures have been hard to mine out of the Jenkins logs and things. For code reviews, when I get CC'd on, ask for a code review, I've been trying to go in and identify the failures that are showing up. The failures get dropped into a JIRA ticket, and I usually put them in as some additional code review notes. If anybody would like more of them, feel free to just include me on the reviews, and I'll add some stuff for you. For the release update, so VOLTHA ticket 5009, that was for writing up release notes for 2.12. That's still an open item. So an update for creating the beta branch for Volta, ended up running into a problem with the naming, for suffixing dash beta on the end of the Volta tag name to create. It turns out we should be able to create this, but there are restrictions in the build system right now that require a semantic version that only contains 3 digits. So if you suffix a string on it to create an alpha or a beta release, it's actually considered like a suffixing dev on the branch. So it's a developer branch, not a release branch. We can probably support that long term, but right now we might be navigating a minefield if we remove that restriction and allow the beta branch to be created. So what we're going to do is, rather than create two releases, the beta release and then the Volta 2.12 release, I'm going to go through, create the branches and the tags and the artifacts for Volta 2.12 right now, which will just be labeled as a beta release. And later on, when we're ready to push the real release out, when the testing's all squared away, we'll just go through and refresh the branches and the tags to get everything with the latest version. That is ongoing right now. I've done this morning, Volta Protos, Volta LibGo, and VolthaGo are all being pushed out right now. I'm going to do the rest of the repositories after we finish up with the meeting. One question, I'm trying to also write up some cookbooks for the commands to be able to check out the release branch if people need to submit bug fixes, and just to try out to make sure that the git review file has been updated so that when you push on the release branch, the changes actually land on the release branch. If anybody would like to try them out, or just go over the cookbooks for clarity to make sure they make sense, let me know. You can just try checking in a benign change onto the release branch just to make sure stuff is working. But we'll be able to get the documentation to a usable state. So I had a question. So for Volta Protos, we just pushed out version 5.4.10. Most everything was pushed out properly. Let me pull this up. I'll make this quick too. So when we publish release artifacts, we branch and tag the Garrett and GitHub repositories. That went all good. A copy of the prototypes for Python get pushed out to the PyPy repository, which is 5.4.10, which is also good. We published to the Golang repository. In the past, that has been updated. 5.4.10 is not available yet, but I suspect that's just a propagation delay, so I'm waiting to see if that changes. The question I had, a Docker image used to be created at one point in time for Volta Protos. This was last published 4 years ago, and the question I have is, should we be publishing an updated artifact, or might this have been discontinued for some reason? If anybody knows. I suspect since
I don't know why do we need to have Volta Protos image. That it's so male, library. So I don't think we need to put it into the Docker Hub as an image.
Okay, that's fine.
That's my opinion. I mean, I don't know anything about the process, actually, but I don't. This is a library. This is not an executable or a component, anything. So why do we create an image and put it in Docker? I don't know. And who used this image?
I don't know. The question I was trying to answer is if it was used at all, or if it was used, it appears to have been published manually, not through Jenkins. I was just trying to figure out if we should support it or not. It sounds like we probably shouldn't, especially if it's 4 years old.
Well, probably.
Okay. I'll check with somebody too if they have any. The person that built it, I'll check with them to see if they have any background on it. Okay, so with that, like I said, once I get the rest of the repositories published, I'll drop a note in VOLTHA docs just so people know it's available. And with that, the floor is open for a discussion if anybody wants to bring up any other topics. And if there are none, it looks like we're 3 minutes over. Last call for any other discussion items. And with that, I guess this week's a wrap. Talk to everybody next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yep.
Bye bye.